Hello, Poggers, and welcome to another episode of the Pog State. The regular season has wrapped up. The first play-in match is also wrapped up. We've got another one tomorrow that you will have already seen, but we have no idea what's going to happen. We have some ideas, but we'll try and figure that one out as it comes along. And then another one immediately after that. There's just a lot of League of Legends that we've got to get into. This episode of the Pog State is a special one, though, because we are handing out some awards and not awards, depending on what they're going to be. I'm here. I'm Atlas. I'm joined by Wolf, Digon, and Orcs, who is still looking at us like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what the look is?
I don't really know. I just started doing it and then I didn't stop.
Mean mugging.
Just to let you know, he's been doing it for about 15 minutes. We're going to start on a little bit of a sad note, and we're going to move our way up. Okay, is that all right with everyone? We
ready.
need to say goodbye to two teams for the rest of 2026. We are no longer going to see the DN Supers, our Kesper Cup champions. They are gone, and so are KMDRX. KMDRX, less of a bang as they made their way out. Although I guess they were aiming for one. Just didn't quite work, did it? I mentioned an 80 carry's name, and so I had to say another 80, you know?
I think I'm just a little bit sad because DNS had such a banger send-off, great performances in the Rise group, but I think, losing 18 consecutive matches in a row is a pretty deep hole.
Yeah.
And even a shovel can't dig you out of it.
I was wondering how you were going to get there, and he got there in the end. Oh, man.
They were, as the question exists on the sheet,
Okay.
were they, parentheses, or individual players, able to leave their mark? Ultimately, Pioshik was removed from the roster.
So they
and
did
he
leave.
was replaced by Charvel.
They
Wow,
left.
wow,
They
wow.
left
their
Mark.
They left their mark,
Wow.
yeah.
When I think about how they have left their mark, last year they left their mark losing to Bro up 10,000 gold. This year they
Pioshik
left
was
their
on
mark.
that roster, though.
They left their mark through crying DNS guy. Like, he's in the closing video. That is how I'm going to remember this DNS team this year. Especially if Charvel gets picked up by someone else. Like, Charvel is going to be how you remember this year. And I feel like you're going to forget, the impact of 18 losses in a row won't be
If I
felt as
hadn't
much.
cast Kespa Cup and watched them win that title, I probably would have remembered all of the bad more than remembering Charvel for 2
Yeah.
seconds. But I did get to watch Charvel beat Genji and smash Genji, and watched him beat Nongshim in a finals one-sidedly. So
And obliterate Hanwha's challenger team in 3 straight 25-minute games.
I think what's clear to me is obviously, as I said, 18 series losses in a row did block them from going further. But I did talk about their route to Worlds,
You did.
to winning Worlds. And I think, a team's going to win Worlds this year. Maybe it's T1 again, maybe it's not. And obviously they'll be the winners. But I'll always wonder, would they have beaten DNS in the finals? And I'm going to ponder on that question.
It's a really good point.
They, they were just on the cusp of greatness.
What if the first part of those 18 losses in a row was in the spring split and just caused them to miss MSI?
What could have been?
Then let's talk about Lazyfield for a sec, because I think that's the other big story on the side of QMDRX. They also had a roadshow that went to Vietnam, and an
That was cool.
international roadshow is super duper cool. I know we went to Hong Kong for the LCK Cup, but I felt like this was a bit different because it was a team going overseas for the Vietnamese fans, which I thought was absolutely amazing. And I don't think they would have done that without Lazyfield on the team.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a huge thing.
Part of me kind of wonders what, for Jiwoo, who we saw play, how that would have shaped up if it wasn't in Vietnam. Was this a move that was based off of the fact that Lazyfield was Vietnamese? Like, I'm curious about that because it felt like he wasn't given enough time to clear up his clear flaws, which was in lane. Like, Lazyfield had trouble in lane, but when it got to team fighting time, he showed that he could hang. And I think that was exciting to watch, but it just felt like there was switching a lot, and Lazyfield's like a what if for me for Kiwoom DRX, and hopefully he'll get another shot in the future.
I think there's always going to be a lot of scrutiny when you're the first import ever. There's going to be a lens on how the impact you have and whether you're able to keep up. I think Lazyfield, it was cool hearing from him in an interview. I think brought a lot of personality. I think was on a struggling team and obviously had his own struggles, but also had some great moments. So I think the roadshow, as you said, was super cool, and hopefully we'll get to see him again.
Yeah, it was also really nice of Genji and T1 to both lose consecutive roadshow games so that Kiem DRX didn't feel bad about losing to Hanwha and Genji back-to-back at their roadshow. It's just really nice, the camaraderie that we have between our teams here at the LCK.
That's
What's
true.
the win rate?
6.
Is that the win rate this year?
0-6.
Roadshows? Wow.
No, well,
No, it's not.
The home
because
grounds.
T1 won their 2 matches against Bro and B&K Fearax. So
25%.
2-6.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think wasn't there an extra Genji one the previous, like at the start of the year as well? I mean, it's all kind of flowed into one for me, but I know that there were definitely 2 for T1, right?
Yes, there were 2 for T1 for sure.
Unfortunately, we do have to say goodbye to the DN Supers and to Kiem DRX. Hopefully, like, good luck in the Stove League. And what I really want to see is this Kesper Cup winning DNS roster to just stay together.
No,
Why not?
because they all have talented players that obviously didn't play that well together, and will probably just split up.
No, but they are playing well together now.
Charvel's gone. He's gone.
Like, can't we dream?
I mean, you could like hope he stays in the LCK. And I think that's a good starting point.
Well, that's obviously going to happen. But, like,
Well-
can't we dream that they stay together? I want to see what this team's actually capable of when they're not.
I mean, I want to see it
Worlds.
too, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. It would be cute. I'm just dreaming and wishing and hoping.
Yep.
We'll see whether Kiem DRX can hold on to aiming or whether he is going to just continue being a mercenary of the LCK, just switching from team to team. Not entirely sure where he's going to end up as well, but a lot of that
Maybe
is
he ends
speculation
up
for
like
the end
a
of
sort of Teddy situation. You know, where Teddy was going to different team. Obviously now on Bro, and obviously had that series today where he was really trying.
the year. Oh, yeah.
My expectation is aiming will probably find himself back in the LPL. I think he's going to go back to the LPL. He has, you know, had a lot of success on a lot of different teams here, but never able to get to the next level. But he's such a, in my mind, easy to slot in player if you have a team that just wants a late game 80 carry situation. And could probably make more money there than he can here, I think, based on his current situation. But who knows?
Yeah. I think the other person is Yukao, because I think Yukao had a solid end to the year, right? I mean, and then also just it's hard to get competent mid lanes that can go toe to toe with the top end guys.
What about closer?
I've heard a rumor that Yukal is going to take up a career as a professional dancer. Whether he juggles that with the LCK, I don't know. But yeah.
I think he's been working. I think he's actually been doing practicing for that transition on the LCK. He's actually maxed his time that way. He's very efficient.
Very efficient, yeah. So
I
maybe
think they've been
that-
doing it. He's been doing it with Roma as well. I think they've been doing it together a little bit.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's able to do that while the LCK, maybe he does stay on and just keeps dancing at the same time.
Keep on dancing, Yuko.
Yeah.
Keep on dancing. And now we are going to get into our overreaction prediction awards. So this isn't necessarily our predictions throughout the year. Wolf has already been crowned the king of predictions. Congratulations to Wolf for this year. Was wearing the
Thanks,
crown.
guys.
Had Sting as well. Didn't go invisible, which bothered me.
Sting doesn't make you go invisible.
No, it's
Oh,
the
wait,
ring.
that was the ring.
Sorry,
The
no,
ring, my
it
wedding
wasn't
dance.
blue.
Sting glows when
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
orcs
when
around.
there's orcs around.
What
And
are you?
I thought it
Oh,
was
when
Shelob as well. No,
orcs-
it's just orcs.
Yeah, it's just
When
orcs.
orcs is
Sorry,
around? When orcs is around.
Exactly.
I wasn't
but
on the
orcs,
space.
But orcs was here.
I wasn't on the space though. Maybe it wasn't in proximity.
But it's still, that's got to be close enough for it to glow. I'm sorry for completely messing that up, the one ring and Sting. But orcs was here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't blue.
I thought you were talking about the Sting song.
Wait, there's a blue
If
glow
I-
right now.
Message
If I ever
involved.
lose my faith in you, like, isn't he a king in that
Is
or
the
something in the
stage
music
Sting?
video?
I don't know.
Anyway,
I know
he-
he's an alien in New York. He has done that before. Let's get into it. So, we have a bunch of different envelopes that have a bunch of names in them, potentially, or singular names. And
Is there going to be a penalty this time? Not
You can't decide
specifically.
to do a penalty right before you open the envelope.
Well,
Did
it's
we-
better
That's
than
exactly
after.
what we did last
yeah,
year.
I
Better than
was like,
after. It doesn't specifically have to be a cosplay, but I feel like there should be some form of suitable penalty for whoever gets Comic Sans.
was Wolf just nervous right there? Is that what that was? You can't do that. But
He's
that's
the
what we did
number one
last year.
predictor. Surely he's fine.
Yeah, predicting what's happening in current time, week to week.
Yeah, these
All about
predictions were
some
tough.
silly business about what was happening in the early part of the year.
Oh yeah. Okay.
some
Sorry.
silly business.
Weekly predictions. Serious.
Yes.
These predictions.
Silly business.
Silly business.
Yeah, silly business.
Maybe we just all have to bring in our favorite food from our local area for everyone to eat.
Delicious delicacies.
For the next
Everybody
Pog
wins.
State.
I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down.
That sounds pretty good.
Okay, here we go. All right, here's the honorable mentions. These go to
Wait, what is honorable?
Huni and Yankos,
Oh.
who are at 5th place, but they got to predict like 15 years after the start of
Yeah,
the
they were
season.
cheaters.
And so they knew exactly how the top of the table was going to look. And it was,
Match
you know,
40.
they predict from match 40.
Wait, and they only came 5th? That's crazy.
Our next one I will give away if I read the title,
Okay.
but I'll let you know. So this goes to Sambi.
What?
Because he got an honorary Comic Sans because we demanded that he have it because he forgot to collect predictions from Valdez until like a week later.
He made Valdez a cheater, so he has to get a Comic Sans.
I
I
just
hope
fully
nobody
thought that
sneezes
full.
or anything.
You can't bend a hook with...
What? I
Do you
didn't
guys
know this
understand how
was a thing.
physics works at all? Best predictor. This is where we're getting to now.
We have a prize for best predictor.
There's a prize for best predictor? The thing that we base this on is us mainly forgetting the,
I
like...
don't even know what I did.
I don't think any of us have any idea. So this is actually a huge surprise. You could theoretically pause this video right now and just go back to the episode where we do this.
Yes.
And you'll know all of the answers based on the standings.
You
that
could
you'll
take
see.
all that time, or you could just stay watching
Or you could
for
just
the next
stay
5
watching
seconds.
for the next 5 seconds and you can find out who the best predictor is. And I almost spilt coffee all over it. The best predictor
Don't be Chronicle, I swear to God.
is Wolf.
Whoa, he won here too?
Wait, I won?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
apparently.
And
It's never
Valdez.
happened before.
But
And
he
Valdez,
cheated.
he cheated
Just because
of the week.
Valdez cheated, I don't
But
get
actually, I think he
cursive.
still wins. I think he still wins.
Wow.
What?
So
If
Valdez,
Valdez
and Wolf.
didn't cheat, I would have had cursive.
How would
I
you
think.
feel about calling this silly now, Wolf?
It's pretty silly. It was so silly business.
Dun,
I'm
dun,
not gonna lie.
dun.
Wait, I get a present?
No,
it's
I'm
like a
worried
present.
now.
It's like a real present inside.
Whoa, there's a present in
Oh
the
my
present?
God.
It says thank you. This makes your life happier.
Whoa.
Oh.
World's best predictor?
Oh, that is
my
so cute. Oh, that's adorable.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. This is the best thing that's ever happened.
And now
to me.
Daddy gets to drink out of it every morning.
And every
you know?
time I sip out of it, Chronicle is so mad.
Oh my God. That's the best part, that we only gave this out when Chronicle's not here.
I'm
And
actually
also
going
we
to take
know
a
that he
picture
had
of it.
perfect predictions this year.
No, I
as
can't. I
well.
can't.
yeah.
I can't spoil. Oh, I can't spoil. I
I
was gonna
just-
take a picture and send it to him, but he'll just have to watch the episode.
All right. So now we have the common predictors.
That's me. Please be common. I don't,
I don't know what the common predictors means.
my day-to-day predictions were not that good. Maybe this one was better.
How many is
Common
that? How
folk.
many common...
The
He hasn't seen it. He doesn't
relatable
know.
folk.
Oh, let's go!
You and me, baby.
Nice job.
The
Nice job,
double
Cameron.
A's!
Oh.
Hey!
Okay, wait. Well, Yankos and Huni were 5th,
Wait, when?
right? Because they're
Oh, yeah, we don't even have numbers.
No, when did I ask?
Listen, Digon, like I said before, silly business, okay? Don't try to rationalize it. Don't try to break the rules. Don't try to Valdez. It's okay.
There's still
All
hope.
right.
There's 2 envelopes.
There's
You
still
could
2 envelopes.
you could not be in the terrible envelope.
And now,
What nice food stuff do you have near your place, by the way? No, just
Dumplings.
asking for no reason.
and here is the worst predictors of the LCK.
Oh, nice! You dodged it! You dodged it, and
Thank
we
you.
we missed out on dumplings.
Wasn't Wadid super high on DNS? I think he was.
Is that the
actually.
doomed-ness
Yeah.
of it?
I think Umpty was completely ruined.
You know
Like,
what?
he
I
was
think, guys,
very
I think I'm
doomed.
gonna say it. At least what did is consistent.
All right, I'm gonna need you to hook me up over there.
You know, he got last place last time, and he just knows his place.
And finally, we have another one. Dagon.
What is that?
It means you're
And-
not the worst, but you're not a common predictor.
It's taped together.
Wait, what's on the other side?
Bum, bum, bum! What? Surprise!
Oh my God! Looks like
Comic
dumplings on the
Sans.
menu, boys.
Looks like they couldn't fit all the Comic Sans on one paper, so they made a new one.
What happened after Chronicle left? None of us know how to predict anymore. We're all Comic Sansing.
Oh my God! I love the fake out. He thought he was safe. He thought he was secure.
I was like, you know, Wadid and I live nearby each other. Maybe he'll buy the dumplings for me. I'm not the worst, but apparently I'm the worst among the 5 regular poggers. So.
Man.
Yeah, right.
Oh, worst predictor.
Oh no.
Nice.
You get a gift for being the worst predictor?
God, they should put you in a talk show together.
Oh my god.
I thought it was going to
Worst
be like worst
predictor.
predictor, but no. Nice tries.
Nice tries, even worse. Oh.
This is like
that's so good.
not just prediction failure. This is any failure. Where did I
Still,
go
you're
wrong?
only. That means you're only bottom 5. The bottom of the us 5. You know.
Yeah.
So it's not that bad. And now, it is time to get into the meat and potatoes. This is something that you guys have probably been talking about for a little while, as the All-Pro votes will have come out a few days ago for you at home. They are going to be released to the public tomorrow, our time.
For our time, yeah.
So we've done our votes. We know what our votes are, but we don't know what the actual results are yet. Daniel, why are you looking at me so confused?
I'm just.
Is that just how
He's
you're
just
looking at me?
constantly lost. Yeah.
Okay,
He just
fair
cast a KT Bro 5 gamer.
Good. I was
Yeah.
thinking like, did I miss the reveal? Like, and actually we know everything. And
No.
okay.
No, I'm just,
So this episode is now being released a couple of days after, and so you guys will have seen them. So now it is time for us to have a bit of a chat as to what our criteria is and why we decided to vote for who we voted for. We did a little bit of discussion about this amongst ourselves, but I think most of us basically voted independently. And I think we all waited until the very end of the season before we actually cast any votes.
Yep.
Yep.
I think that would be how it went.
Maybe I was a little late after the end of the season.
Well, you definitely waited until
I do want to put this out there now. Whether you are very happy with the results, if you are very happy with the results of the All Pro, that was all us.
Yeah.
We made that happen for you. If you are unhappy with the results of the All Pro, it wasn't us. They actually discount our votes if you're unhappy with them, and our votes do not count.
Yes,
based
actually,
on how you feel.
I can specifically say it's Brendan Valdez's fault. If
Exactly.
you're looking for someone to blame,
Yeah.
look straight at him.
So pretty much all of the we're going to talk
Same
about
handle on
our
Twitter.
votes, but just to let you know, if any player was just a little bit far away from where they wanted to be, I know that you've seen who voted for what, but actually Valdez's votes count for more. And even if he wrote a certain player, it's wrong. And he
why-
was the one that.
Why do his votes count for extra? I never worked that out.
I never worked that out either.
it's
I think it's
weird.
his tenure because he started on the global broadcast in 2012, much longer ago than any of us.
That
So
makes sense. Maybe
they
votes
like to do that.
were just worth more then.
Yeah, and that carried over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's his fault. That's all we're saying. Are we going to start with Rookie of the Year? I think this is probably the easiest one to get on through, although the top 2, I think, are relatively interchangeable. I think that still makes it easy, though.
Yeah,
Right?
I think so.
It's also like such a small pool to vote from. It's
Yeah.
actually-
So the options were Smash, Korea, Namgung, and
Lazy
Field. And there's a reason why I forgot Lazy Field was on the list, because I didn't put him on my list.
He appears to be missing from all 4 lists.
Yeah, Lazyfield had a tough go. I think it was great experience. I think it was a lot of fanfare when we saw him have success, but it was less rare than I think the 3 players that we all did put.
He chose the
finding
wrong
success.
year. There was the Lucid year where it was like, well, sorry everyone. The Shu year happened as well, and that
Diablo
was a bit
year.
of a sorry everyone. Diablo year, Pays year, like it can be a little bit of a tough one. This time it was the Smash and Korea year, so and Namgung as well, having like a phenomenal performance when no one had any expectations. He came into the LCK and everyone was like, oh wow, the support pool in Korea has really gone this
That was
far.
one of our
It's
conversations.
So doomed. I remember we did talking about it. He was like, "Oh man, I should start playing again." I think now
Wait, we did
we've
said that?
kept
No
him in
way.
retirement.
He's only
We've
said that
kept
like
him in
100
retirement.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Namgung. Like I think had a phenomenal glow up over this year, and has been really really fun to watch. But unfortunately, Smash and Korea were too good.
Yeah, I think supports often tread the line between making the greatest player of all time and running it down.
Oh yeah.
It's so hard to have that confidence to tread that line in a pro game. I think Namgoon has really grown a lot and just been willing to make these plays that are potentially game winning. and they can backfire, but he's had some big moments. But I think Smash and Korea have just been such a phenomenal bot lane. When they came in on D+, I know the expectations were. Obviously, they struggled a bit. Like, Smash's expectations were high, but Korea just seems so fresh. And had to struggle with a lot of confident issues early on. And I just feel like the difference between then and now is insane.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that they've won an international now, they've obviously made a crazy run through the Legend group as well. And you can see them matching up into top bot lanes and doing very well. I think it's just a crazy journey that they've had over this period. I know we had, like, Smash obviously played in T1 before, but it was such a small window. And also when you're, like, slotting into the team who just won Worlds, it was like, well, they're pretty good.
And it was LCK Cup, so it's not real.
True.
Doesn't exist. So he never played for T1. But yeah, you put yours as Korea Smash Namgung, and we all had Smash Korea. And I think that switch up,
I think it was
justice
actually
for
kind of
supports, is fine.
it was kind of tough for me to choose between Smash and Career.
I
but
literally
ultimately,
clicked all the boxes in a circle for like 5 minutes before I decided.
I thought initially my gut reaction was to vote for Career, but I thought I was being a little bit more recency biased, and I thought about Smash for the year and the impact he's made. And it's not to say that Career hasn't made the same impact, but I feel like Smash's impact is much more clear. It's much more obvious what he's done, and he's been able to drag D+ across the line a few times. Career has too, frankly, but like Smash is, I think, when I think about the 2v2, the more important factor. When I think about outside of that, obviously, it's often Career, especially the latter half of the year. But it was like 55-45 for me when I locked Smash in. I didn't feel like this is obvious to me, but I felt like it was the right choice and the right vote.
I felt like it was super close. For me, going with Korea, I feel like, this was Korea's first chance to dip his toes in a Tier 1 play, and it was like a rough road, but so much growth from there, and so much confidence now as a player, and had a fantastic run recently. I feel like Smash was solid throughout, and they're both like phenomenal players, but I just felt like, for me, when I think Rookie of the Year, like Korea really personified that in my mind.
yeah, he hadn't already played.
Most of the time when I think about rookie career, it's a player who gets put in the big boy position and doesn't look like a rookie. And I think, Lucid did that before at his time when he was filling the shoes of Canyon. Like, that's a big deal. Diablo came in and looked like the next great AD carry, as well as Shiwu, who just was thrown into the top lane, replacing Kingen. Like, it felt like, okay, we're seeing the growth of these players in a way where we don't have to use baby gloves. We're using real gloves, and that, I think, is what both these players personified here. And I think either one would have been fair. Like, yeah, either one would have been fair here.
Yeah, and I'm actually thinking back, I think a lot of what impacted my choice of putting Smash in first was watching him win EWC, which probably shouldn't have counted for this. But I think it did, and I'm okay with that.
It's like, just to talk on that in general, obviously we're voting specifically on the LCK regular season, but it's also broken up, and it's very hard to like remove any impact from these tournaments that happen in between.
Well, how well Smash played after he won EWC is hard to forget. Like, afterwards, like, he played really, really well. Not that he wasn't playing well before, but it felt like there was a confidence change for both of them.
Yeah.
And they're both. It's rare to have Rookie of the Year be like kind of in the same position, right? Like, it's the same team that they're competing against for Rookie of the Year in the same lane as AD carry and support. So, I feel like if you go either way here, it's pretty forgivable. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think next we probably, as we move into all of the roles, need to have a bit of a discussion about our own personal criteria for how this works. Because I think we all stipulate different things for how we decide on All-Pro votes. I think some of us are more okay with recency bias. Some of us are focused on improvement. Some of us are focused on just trying to work out the average across the whole year. Some of us are focused on like the most important games of the year, I guess, and like big performances in certain matches. I think there are different things that we all sort of put players down for. So I guess we can go around the table and have a bit of like a philosophy conversation first, which I think will give you the most information if you're trying to work out why we
I'd
voted
like
the
doing
way
that
we
first
voted.
so that we can, when people say what they do later, I mean, I'll probably reference what I'm going to say now later when I talk about some of my picks. Like I said, I'd like to vote for this. I like to think about the year as a whole. I like to think about the players in that role in every type of situation that might occur in an all-pro situation, as if this all-pro team was going to play against other teams from like other regions, almost like a national team. Like, what sort of impact could this player give unknown, like knowing that you don't know who the rest of the team is or who they're going to play against, like who can make the biggest impact and who's made the biggest impact this year in that role to slot them into a team like this for first All-Pro. I'm talking first All-Pro. And then the same would apply to second and third, like as a tier. But like who would slot into this role the best way with 4 other unknown players against unknown enemies and do the most and have the largest impact. So that's how I vote. Recency bias plays into that a lot when I'm thinking about I'm making this team right now. But when I think about the year as a whole, it's like, well, what have they gone through? What hardships have they faced? Like, what growth did they show? Because it's also, again, unknown opponent, unknown situation. How would this team fare in any sort of fake world? Means like you have to consider everything. Like how they would, if this team was playing for a year, like how would it go?
So you're constructing a team that's going to do battle with the aliens that have come to invade us, and we have to send the best League of Legends players in the world to face off against them.
But I'm not constructing the one team. I'm not thinking like, oh yeah, like I should go for this mid jungle because they would be good together. I'm just thinking about one player with 4 unknowns every time I do it. So like when I'm going jungle, it could be with any 4 other players. Like how would he do in this spot?
All right, I like that. I don't think of it quite the same way, although I do really like that, and I might steal it for next year. The way I think of it is almost purely on development and progression. I really like seeing a player improve. I think consistency is the second pillar. So who has made the most growth and been consistently good? So like you need to reach a growth threshold, right? Like there are certain players here in the LCK, like Charvel, who unfortunately we couldn't vote for, but probably wouldn't have anyway, that, you know, showed an incredible growth, but in a Rise group and stuff like that. So like the caliber of opposition isn't necessarily there. But if a player has been able to show that level of improvement over the year, I think that matters more than a good player that's stayed the same level of good. If that makes sense. I think it impresses me to be able to push boundaries, and I think that plays a part. But when I talk about good player that stayed good, if they're just consistently the best, like Chovy, for example, that's hard to ignore. So there's this battle that always goes on in my head of like, am I just voting for the fun storyline because this guy has gotten so much better? Or is this person actually able to challenge the top dogs now? And should I just vote for the one that has stayed the same? And so it's always the consistency versus improvement argument that comes into play with me. But I think same way with Wolf, that invites a lot of recency bias, because when I'm talking about All-Pro, I'm talking about a team that I'm making right now. So what has happened in the spring season, while it can play a part into that consistency conversation, it doesn't necessarily play a part in what I'm talking about today, if that makes sense. So that's sort of where I'm at. I know it's a bit convoluted, but sometimes there are players that are just consistently amazing, and they're going to stay there. And then there are players that have really made an upswing, and they tend to catch my attention.
Yeah.
Or players that have had a really hard time because they've had to do a lot of different roles within a team. And we'll get to that as we move forward.
Yeah, I think for me, the spring split, rounds 1 and 2, are more games than rounds 3 and 4. And so I tried really hard to try and not weight it, but remember, like, that's literally what it is. It's more games. And so you try to see what the teams were like at that time, take a look at stats at that time, and then take a look now. Like if I picked a team that was round 3 and 4 All-Pro, it's very different than, in some roles, it's very different than what I would pick if I try to weight it just for that and only in LCK, not including LCK Cup, not Kespa, definitely not EWC for me. Because then it would be a lot more D plus Kia, in my opinion. But for me, the way I understand it and the way that I interpret it, which is subjective, is we keep it LCK, and we have to make sure that we keep in mind that the 36 series that are played, so 18 series that are played in the first half of the season compared to 8 in the second half.
26 total.
Yeah, so 26 total. And so when I went in doing that, I'd take a look at that. And then how does this player function to the team's success. It doesn't matter, or it somewhat matters like how high that team's success was, but how much did they matter to their team's success was the other part that I took a look at. Because as
I
we'll
did that
get
for
into-
MVP.
Yes, you do that very
Yeah,
clearly.
MVP,
for
I think we
MVP.
probably will, when we do our MVP votes, we'll probably talk about each person's individual criteria for MVP before we do that. 'cause
I think we
that's-
just
that's a
talk
little
about
different.
MVP, and we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
put that down.
So those are the two, I think, biggest differences that I had compared to others.
Yeah, I kind of aligned on the whole long split versus short portion of the split because for me, I think this year was kind of tricky because last year it was 18-12 because we had the 3 rounds in this bit. This was even less. And I think naturally you're going to remember the more recent matches, the more recent performances more. So everyone's going to naturally have some recency bias. But I try and think about like the entire regular split, how a player's consistency was, but it's not something I like prioritize over everything. And if a player has improved, that's better. It's like if one player started at 5, finished at a 9, and another player started at 9, finished at a 5, the 5 to 9 would obviously rank better. But I also think about like if they were playing really well for round 1 and round 2 and round 3 and then fell off a bit at round 4, I would still think they've had a really good season, even if the end like tailed off a little bit, because it's about like how you performed across all these matches in the LCK. I think consistency is really important. I think obviously, role by role, like what is important to me varies. And I try and like, it's difficult, but like obviously filtering out the other tournaments that we play in between can be quite hard sometimes and not letting that try and affect it. So, going back and looking at some matches from way back then, I think can really help when I'm trying to like deliberate. Ultimately, I feel like when it comes to All Pro, I'm just like, who do I think had the best performance? And, I feel like, I understand your criteria, but I feel like yours differs from mine in regard, because if a player may have stayed really consistent, but he had the best overall performance, like that ranks really high with me, even if he hasn't necessarily grown that much. And I think it's, as I feel like really confident on the upper ranks, because I think some of them are just like, for me, like glaringly obvious. I think as it gets like lower in it, I think that's where it gets a lot more subjective and difficult to figure out. But I think every person I placed on mine, I feel pretty confident about my placements. And it's just, I just measure up, like think of the big performances they had, think of the big moments in terms of impact on the team as well. Because obviously there's some players who, they're on the team and they're there and they're doing their job, but maybe their job just doesn't really, it's like,
things get easier based on the team that you're on, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think there's some players who are
There are
more...
roles that you play on teams too where you're, I don't want to say a passenger, but you're more utility, you're more taking a back seat to the star players.
And I think something that's clear as well is that like I judge what's on the Rift. I watch the gameplay and I judge from what I've seen from the gameplay, because I think sometimes people will talk about, oh, this player is like a really good shot caller, and like it's obviously, I don't ignore that, but I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I've heard that this player is a good shot caller, so every macro decision I attribute to them, because I'm not going through every single
can't prove
VOD.
it.
Yeah.
You can't prove it, right? It's a
Yeah.
similar reason why for me, I don't vote for the coach awards, because I don't know the inner workings of the team. And as much as, this team had success and improved, that's probably down the coach. I don't know exactly how that went down and how to distribute it throughout the coaching staff. So I'd rather not factor that in when I don't really know. So I think for me, it's like purely what's on the Rift. It's also like, I don't want it to be misconstrued as like, I think this player is better than this player. That doesn't really factor into it for me. It's about the performance they had.
Yeah.
So like if you have a player who I'm like, this guy's the GOAT of his role, that they may not even be in my top 3 because I think they had a rough year or rough season.
Sure.
Or other players just played really well.
Yeah. I mean,
And
You don't-
players have different styles and
Yeah.
they're better at different things.
yeah,
and,
it may be a
And
better
if-
meta. So
yeah.
like, and the thing is as well is like, this is just top 3. Like you could be like, oh, what about this player? They could be my number 4, and it was close. So
To be top 10 in the best region in the world is already good enough in my book. You're
Yeah.
a great player.
We had
All
a lot
of
of
our
subs.
players
Some players might not
are great
be in the top
players.
10.
Yeah, we had some players that didn't make the list. Yeah, for that reason alone. Anyway, that's enough faffing about. Let's have a look at Coach of the Year, which is not necessarily as important. I only put down CV Max because he was the only one I really saw doing like active, cool coaching stuff, like the big hug with career and stuff like that. Just that was really heartwarming and cool. I didn't know anything about what any of the other coaches were saying necessarily, apart from just like interview coach speak, which is I don't know whether what that impacts with like how they're actually manipulating the team necessarily. So I decided to skip.
I'm normally with Ox, and I don't vote much on Coach of the Year, or I'll pick like one, and I don't go down the list. But this year I voted for two. I put CV Max first because it's very obvious the impact he's made to the team. It's very obvious the impact he's made on career and how their friendship and mentorship, I guess you could say, has really flourished. And I've said this many times on broadcasts. I feel like D+ is often ride or die with CV Max. Like they follow his orders, they follow his draft decisions, and sometimes it looks great and sometimes it bombs. But every time it bombs this year, they learn, they come back, they grow, right? And I think that's something that even if I don't have the coach comms, even if I just look at a few content pieces that maybe people didn't agree with for CV Max this year that have come out, I look at the results, I look at how they play, I look at how he communicates with them on camera, and I think it's very obvious to me that he's made, in my mind, in my opinion, the largest impact out of any coach this year. And the second one is home from Honda Life Esports, because they started off rough this year. They couldn't figure out how to play through Kanavi, and he was able to get everyone on the same page, I think alongside Kanavi as well. But I think he was a huge part in bridging the gap between some of the disagreements in the team. And they were able to shape the entire meta for the early part of this year through Kanavi's aggressive style because he was able to link Delight to him. And yes, that took some time, and it fell apart again towards the later part of the season. It had to be fixed. But he was able to do that as well, right? He pulled Delight out twice, one time as a reward for bluffing, but the second time as more of a experimental learning choice. And I liked how confident he made his statements about what he was trying to do with the direction of the team. And you could feel what he said lined up with the results every time. And sometimes when I see coach, we get a lot of coach comments and post-game things. You guys can see some of those that are released online, some of those are in interviews, but we get these other comments that aren't always released about how the coaches feel they want to tell the LCK their performance was. And sometimes a coach will literally just say fluff that means nothing, or like, oh, we didn't play our game today. But I feel like Coach Ohm always has a detailed explanation about what he thinks went wrong, what they're trying to improve, and you could feel that it always lines up with what you saw. So I really trust him. I think he deserved a shout, so I gave him second. Beyond that, I didn't really have strong opinions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those reasons are why I voted Ohm first. I just think Hanwha Life Esports have the clearest identity in professional League of Legends. It's have Kanavi, go on in, Delight should follow up, and if we get a lead at 10 minutes with 1,000 gold, it's going to be 4,000 by probably Drake 3 at 20 minutes. And that's how they win. That it was the clearest thing at the beginning of the year, and that was after, a LCK Cup where they finished last. This was molding from the bottom up, and so I think for me to see them rise up to that challenge and be that clear on what they wanted to do, and as Wolf said, every statement that he made lined up with what they were doing in terms of the substitutions, in terms of the performance of the team. And then you look at the performances of some of the players. Like Zeka had himself a fantastic year. I think some of that goes to the coaching staff. With Ryu, the way I thought about it, and we brought it up on our podcast, was Ryu takes over a expectation-laden team. Genji has now won multiple times in a row. They had insane regular seasons. His tenure overall as a success or a failure won't be done in the LCK regular season. But at the end of the season, I don't remember really calling out some of his drafts as like, whoa, this was bad. Because that was the thing with Ryu, was his drafts early on, or when he was over on BNK Furex, then he started cooking a little bit. Then he joins Genji. Then they find successful drafts. And this year, this was the most adversity Genji has faced in the last 3 years of a regular season, and Ryu found a way to put the pieces back together and find success and navigate them to another first place finish. And then finally, CV Max, all the things that you said as well, the impact and the relationship with career, again, Showmaker having himself another resurgence of a year, and then guiding 2 rookies on the bottom side of the map to success. I think, again, a lot of plaudits there, as much as you can see from the outside. And my thinking is, I want to try and vote all the spots to the best of my ability. So should they abolish this head coach vote for everyone?
Yes.
Maybe. But
yes, definitely.
While we have it, I'm going to use all 3. So that is what I did.
Yeah, because how can you attribute any of the drafting to Ryu?
Sure.
You can't. We don't have coach comms for draft. So it's just impossible. And I'd love to, because like
Yeah.
that's the thing that annoys me, right? Because you've done what I've done in the past, which is just fill the spots because I can.
Yeah.
And I give them to teams that do well. But does that mean that they've been coached well? Like Genji fell apart. They were fine. Why did they
Also,
fall apart?
One thing is
Bad
that
coaching,
like
could be a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of this happened this year, but you could view a coach well because a team releases good content or a lot of content about them.
Yeah,
And because
true.
another team doesn't release that content, you just don't know, which makes it hard to judge. That's one of the reasons, I opt out. I'm not saying any of that happened this year with this situation. Like, I think you guys all had really valid reasons, but that's why I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't have the information to vote.
No, I think
personally.
it's all fine, and I really respect you like giving it a shot. But I think that it's so hard for us to know.
I
any
really
of those
tried this year to focus more on our legend group coaches.
There's no
and what
need to
they're
call
doing.
us a moron.
No. I'm just saying I tried to focus on. I really tried to focus on.
You didn't get it.
Oh, okay. I tried to
Focus
focus
more
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
on.
I tried. Sorry. I tried to. I wasn't really trying to call you guys out because you weren't focusing. I thought so. You meant it first. I was like, no, that's not what I mean. I'm just. I've really tried to focus on the choices coaches have been making in the legend group this year because they've been more vocal than ever. I think even Tom, who's historically been quite quiet in the past, and like again, we don't know, but I felt good about these two. I didn't have any feelings about Ryu at all personally, but or Tom, although he said a lot of things, which is cool, and I like that he's saying them. I couldn't attribute those things to what I saw the team doing, minus Painter being in and out.
Yeah.
So I really respect that we can have this transparent conversation about this, though, because there will probably be some people who are like, why did Wolf only vote for 2, and then Max only voted for 1,
Yeah,
and
we have
then
4 different
Deacon did
voting
3,
styles
but
here.
he did none. So I hopefully this clears that up for you guys at home.
I feel like we should have Valdez on here as well, so that we can just talk about it without context.
Oh my God, I would slander him so
Oh,
hard.
it'd be so funny.
Yeah, Valdez said this, actually. I thought it was really out of pocket, but I guess that's just what he thinks.
Maybe we could just make him up. We could just make him up.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. Speaking of slander, let's head to the top lane and see whether we're similar or different. As looking like we are pretty similar in the first couple, apart from me deviating a little bit as far as the second one is concerned. But I think we've all got a similar mix of players.
Well, the same first one.
Yeah, Zayas was pretty good this year. Let's just say that.
fantastic.
This year. For a lot of years.
My wife does this to me all the time. I'm like, you look great today. And she's like, today? I'm like, run into it. Does not exclude other years. However, was very good this year.
I think for me, talking like Zayas Keen, these two are so good. But I do think Keen and Genji in general have had more struggles this year than last year. Keen was my first last year, and I think he was, for me, actually the most impactful player on Genji, which is not a take everyone shares. I think this year he's definitely struggled more, and Zayas, especially the meta that we've had, I think something that's really amazed me is the fact that the matchups will occur, which it's clear he's not played before, not played for a while, not be spoken about, or be two champions who are just out there. And I just feel like he has a fantastic read on how to play them despite that. And it just feels like his mastery over different matchups is just crazy, which in a meta where like Olaf is dominated and people are picking like Kled into it and some are really struggling, I just feel like he has such a mastery over that aspect of top lane. He just feels so strong.
He did not win, but he played Heimerdinger in the Kespa Cup, which
Yeah.
was really fun, and he played it really well. It wasn't his fault that they lost. They just got out macroed by a really smart strategy from DNS, but it is cool like that he does stuff like that. Zayas, I feel like he's got his own champion pool quirks where he's got his own special counter picks and some picks that he plays that he played years ago that he brings out from time to time, and you're like, oh, the Aatrox, like this is scary, that no one else is playing that week, or he plays it in this one spot.
Yeah,
and you're like, wow.
he doesn't do the I'm going to bring out the Udyr. He does the I'm going to bring out the Kennen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cannon.
You
Did
know?
that last week.
And sometimes you bring out the Udyr and you just lose. And other times you bring out the Kennen and you just win. And that's the difference between Zayas and other people, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Or
we
one
have-
other specific person.
Sorry, pun. Who
think-
else did it? Was it Clear or Kingen?
It was, I think it was clear, right?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, it was clear. It was clear.
It was one of those two in my brain.
I think when we get to 2 and 3, Keen and Perfect and Shiwu, right, they shift on around. Keen was not also immediately a lock, given the fact that we wait the whole season. Keane was having a little bit more of a struggle at the beginning of the year than what we were used to. Not even just the team, but Keane specifically. It was when Perfect was running the league. Perfect was the best top laner in the league and turned me into a believer in saying that comfortably, that he was the best top laner in the league at that time.
Until he hit Zeus specifically.
Until
and
he
the
hit
KT
Zeus,
streak
that's
stopped,
right.
Yeah.
And then from there,
KT fans remember.
it wasn't just a Perfect issue after that. It was a KT issue after that, and the trade and everything that's happened since then. But Keane was the second most consistent player. His pool was wide. When the team found success, he started finding more success here at the end of the season. A lot of solo kills in the last several weeks, and so I think that was an easy one. And then Perfect coming on in for me because of that early start. And then I don't attribute the downfall of KT to him. I contribute so many of the wins to him early on in the season. And she was close, but again, it goes back to what I counted in. I didn't really count the EWC qualifiers and stuff like that, and just go back to that 0-10 Aurelia game.
Yeah.
He played
It
that
was
game
super
so well.
funny.
Every time everybody talks about that
Super
Aurelia
funny.
game, I get mad because I feel like despite the game state, he played incredibly well that game. Like, he was running around the map side laning. He could not fight anybody or kill anybody. He played the map really well.
He played the best 0-10 game I saw.
I mean,
top laner play
I
this
will
year.
say that
every player's had some pretty rough performances, guys.
Yeah.
So
I think there's, especially when you get down like that third spot, there's always blemishes, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think for me, the perfect point that Digon raised, I think, like, when I compare to last year, where it felt like he was this really struggling component on this KT roster, and then this year it was like, pick me Vayne, lock me in, I'm gonna carry, and having this big impact and being like kind of this weaker reflection of Zeus, where he was like, put me in that position. And obviously, when he did reflect against Zeus, he obviously struggled, but I think it shows a lot of growth, and I think he just had a lot of games in that longer period when KT were the top team in the league where he really impressed. So
I think for me, I think Perfect had a great start to the year, but he was very muted for the most part for the rest of the year. And I think part of it was because the mid jungle was fumbling. It wasn't his fault per se, but he didn't make a big impact. I didn't feel confident, going back to my criteria, like you could slot this guy into a team and he would just be the best, or third best in this case, person for the job. Interestingly, I was not between Perfect and Shu. I was between Shu and Doran. I was like, Doran had some great games.
He did.
He has had phenomenal impact in some of the big games and big wins. And I was like, is Doran top 3? Like, and I really had to think about it a lot. And I was, because
if
obviously
we
for
did
me,
this going into MSI, I would have put Doran.
and
there,
I
think.
thought so much about some of the successes Doran had at the beginning of this year, where he saved games and saved drafts sometimes, and he was weak siding so well, but then his Jace is popping off in other games. And I just thought, okay, but Shu does it more often. He did it more consistently, so I went with Shu. But I kept going back to and I talked about this on another podcast a few days ago, but the Shu chant, Shu! Every time he makes a big play, we're on the casting desk, you could just hear the whole crowd make that sound together. And I've only ever felt that in my entire esports career with one of the players, French player named Soon, and everyone just goes, Soon! every time I made a big play. And their chants were so infectious the same way. People always thought the fans were booing because they said it's such a deep voice and it would just go through the entire crowd. And I just feel like when I feel that energy and I remember the big outplays he keeps making, and I keep hearing those sounds, and the crowd keeps going crazy every time he does it, I was like, yeah, it's Shu. It's him this time. I went for him over Doran. But it was a tough call. I think Doran, to me, and this is maybe my hot take, people are underrating him a little bit. I think he's had some really tough losses, and people remember those more than the consistency he had.
I think the hate that Doran gets is completely unwarranted. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's a top 3. I think it is completely unwarranted. Like, there is no way anyone that's throwing out slander against Doran could 1v1 him on their best day ever. I don't think that would happen. So I think that it's not very fair.
I don't think anyone who's slandering Doran could 1v1 Vikla or...
Hey, Vikla's a great 1v1 player, actually.
I don't think anyone that could
You know what it
1v1 Peter in the top lane on
you know
their
what it
best
is?
day.
It's a thing people talk about with the Olympics, where they're like, they should just put a normal guy in so you can see actually how far ahead they are. Because
Yeah.
they see that.
Which
like,
is what, like-
I could run fast. I could do
That
that.
guy finished last in
I
the
could
race.
flip
They
over
do it
that.
with all the dinosaur books. You know, you get a dinosaur book and they show you a Diplodocus and they're like, by the way, I know in this picture that we have recreated for you, it just kind of looks like a hippo, but here's the size of a human compared to this dinosaur, and that's always the best, having the context.
Newsflash, to even make it to the Olympics and be, even if you're like last place in the 100-meter sprint, you are still very fast. If you're in the LCK, you are still very good. And yes, you look bad when you have to measure up to extremely good players who kind of similar to the Olympians who are like freaks of nature. Yeah, Chovy is just like unexplainable sometimes.
But also, you have to take massive risks if you want to win. I think this is something that Chovy has actually spoken about more recently as well, wanting to change his play style by, instead of just being that perfect player that doesn't do as much, realizing that you have to take risks to win games. Doran takes risks and does not give a shit.
Yeah, I actually spoke about this recently because there was a clip that someone posted on Twitter and was like flaming Faker because he realm warped behind HLE. You know when they were playing the
Yeah.
really far behind. He realm warped behind, instantly got turned on and died. And like, what is he doing? It's like the 10,000 goal down.
Yeah.
You want him to sit in
Do
the fountain
something.
and wait for the Nexus to die. And the thing is, as well, is like these people just clearly saw, oh, he died. This is bad. The reason it failed is because Ona was like, he was trying to go in at the same time. Guma threw down the spittle, and Ona was just walking to snail's pace, could not get in there in time, so it wasn't synced up. Was the play going to work if that spittle wasn't there? Still probably would fail, but it was way better than the odds if they just sat under the Nexus tower till the game was
You
ended.
got to take risks with limited information, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. And there's not much difference between 0-4 and 0-13, so you may as well throw down.
Oh, I see you're a Namgun enjoyer.
I am. Although, that's different, because he gets more and more powerful with every death, as we know. The 0-8... Reverse Legendary is just a very strong thing in Summoner's Rift. I think you get extra
It
stats.
unleashes you.
Yeah.
At some point, you forget about how many
The
times you've
shackles
died.
just fall off.
Yeah. You're
Like,
just
I'm worth less than a cannon minion. Take me now,
what is
God.
the optimal play to make? And you just do it. And
Yeah.
it results in your death, and you're like, God bless.
Yep. It's beautifully done. That's a bit of a spoiler for my future. I'm the only one that has a difference with the fact that I put you in second place over Keen. I think that has a lot more to do with, like, you guys have been talking about not wanting to take into account EWC, MSI, all the other stuff. I decided to hell with that this year. I just don't give a shit. I've watched it. It's in my brain. I cannot forget the things that have happened. These players are capable of the things that I saw there, and I'm not just going to discount that for the sake of this voting. So I've decided to go with the players based on the experience that they've had this year, regardless of where it is. There's too many other things.
I mean, I try to keep it in this, but they are still representing the LCK when they play overseas.
Yeah, they're still LCK
so
players.
I think
They're
it's,
playing for the same
I
team.
think you're allowed to have that take.
Yeah. I don't know. If it's wrong, they can feel free to take my votes out. I don't think it'll move the needle that much. So yeah, I put Shio up because I actually feel like the direction that he's moved this year has just been so impressive. And even though he had the Aurelia game, even though he had the Jace game, I think he had like a 0-7, it was pretty horrific. He also had Alawi games where he popped completely off, where he shut down the Olaf with his Kled, you know, like had the first like absolutely dominant Kled performance that we'd seen against the Olaf that really blew him out of the water. He's really challenged the top dogs here in the LCK, and especially since EWC and MSI, I feel like DK as a team have just been so incredibly impressive. I think I've just been entranced by this team's performance just in general, and the way that they've
that could
skyrocketed.
happen to a D+ without Beryl. For you.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's weird. It's like the spirit of Beryl lives on in this team. And even Beryl left it, you know, and played on different teams since then, stuff like that. But it feels like the spirit is still there. It's like everyone is just a little mini Beryl, although the real mini Beryl is Namgung, as we know. So I put Shio over Keen for that reason, but I think that it was very interchangeable because Keen is still great. I just think that he didn't have the same year as he had last year, and I had to sort of dock him some points as far as that is concerned. Zeus still the GOAT as far as the top lane is concerned. He is just ridiculous. Let's go to jungle. And, oh, thank goodness. I was starting to think that I was crazy enough to put Lucid above Kanavi, but I wasn't. So we're fine.
I think that one's really close too. Like I think
I don't think so. I think Kanavi was just pretty outstanding.
no. I meant Canyon Lucid.
Oh, yeah, no, that
Yeah,
one's...
sorry.
Oh, I don't, yeah.
I mentioned earlier that one of my big things about my criteria is that you'd have to be able to slot this player into any team with 4 unknowns. I know a lot of people probably are instantly going to be like raising their hand about Kanavi, like, but they all had to learn how to play around him. But I think that he is just such a decisive player. He is a player who shifted the entire meta. Every jungler emulated him this season, and some players struggled. By the way,
junglers were emulating him when he was in the LPL.
Yep.
yeah.
Like,
And
it doesn't
everyone
need to be even in the league.
who tried to emulate him and Hanwha's style, like struggled. Like Owner had his struggles this year. Canyon had his a little bit earlier in the year, I think, because they were trying to figure out how to play that aggressive, scrappy skirmish style. You can't think about this league this year without thinking about Kanavi. Like, he may get MVP because of his ability to change and warp the entire league. I had to, even though it kind of slightly breaks immersion for what I was saying earlier, vote for him for first because he was just the best performing jungler, period. Yes, the team played through him a little bit more, but I still think you have to give him his flowers on this one. He has to be number one. There's no one came close, in my opinion.
But also, he just draws so much responsibility. So, Kanavi, on almost every team that he's ever been on, you live or die by Kanavi almost every single time. And so the reason HLE finished high, the reason they won MSI, unintentional rhyme, was because of Kanavi.
Yep.
Like because otherwise it would have been his fault that they lost.
Correct.
Because like every team just has to be warped around him because he's the one that's so incredibly decisive. And I don't think that you'll be able to change him. You just have to go with him and hope it works. And thankfully, he's got a lot of players that press buttons really well, that when they all make a decision at the same time, it works.
Rarely are there players that use that word that you just used, which is warp how they play around them. You know, we say that around Chovy,
Barrel,
and
for better or worse.
Kanavi. I mean, these are the two players this year that really warped their team to fit them. I think other players that are great and solid are ones that we that eventually got there, but this was one where it was like, no, this is clear what's going to happen. And to do that with such high-profile players on a high-profile team, to me, was so impressive by Kanavi.
Every other team is, I have my play style as an individual. We have our team comp. We have our team identity. Let's try to meet in the middle as best as we can. Kanavi is like, you are playing my play style. We're all playing my play style. This draft is my play style. And the team eventually learned that. And I don't think it's a detriment because it works, right? Like it's they've got a more refined, like you said earlier, Dion, more refined, more definable, more clear play style than any other team in the LCK, maybe even in the world.
Yeah. And that's, possibly good, possibly bad. Depends where the meta is going to go. And also, I think it's harder for a team like HLE to do what Bro did today, for example, where they played a poke composition or something with a different style that isn't dive in behind Kanavi, which can be difficult to do. Obviously, Kanavi has played other styles before, but they don't feel like they're in the same wheelhouse this year.
I feel like also we talked earlier about like being unleashed when you've died loads of times. I feel like Kanavi has just been unleashed. Like maybe he's just died enough times in his career that like
Yeah, now he
has
doesn't care.
no fear at all. And there'll be even times where like he's had a rough start of the game and he'll just find like a crazy Jarvan engage. And I look at it, I'm like, that is the optimal play right now. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes with enough in the hole, it doesn't work out. But I'm like, that was actually a really good engage. This didn't work for this reason, or this didn't work for this reason. But I feel like he just always has his eye on the ball for what's been a great play.
He plays as if he's 7-0, no matter what his scoreline is.
He
That's what I
plays just
feel
with
like.
complete confidence. And obviously, I didn't factor this in, but I've followed Kanavi for a long time. Covered him when he was in the LPL and across multiple teams. And I just feel like he's always had such a great eye for team fighting. And that's kind of being kept up here, where like some junglers, it's like, okay, you're about the early game, you're about the map play. Maybe you make a big engage in team fights, but, it's about the carries. But I feel like Kanavi's like, oh no, I'm also a main character. I know what my job is, and I'm going to get it done. And I find that super impressive. And as you guys said, he just remains such a relevant component of this team that finished round 1 and 2 at the top.
Yeah.
And when we talk about players that warp the team around them, also the team's success, right? It's go back to what you said. The team's success goes to him and also the team, but him as well. Because when I think about a team, last year that had a player that warped how a team played around them, but didn't find as much success. I think that was DRX Teddy. Like that team played around. He was the human nexus. It was Teddy or bust, and they didn't find as much success. So as much as it warped the play around it, it wasn't as successful, and so therefore you don't give them that. Yeah, same thing.
KRX, it's
same
the
thing.
same sort of thing.
So I think that's why it is so impressive to see it.
Diablo to
be
a
like
lesser extent.
the one. Yeah,
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
So
The next one is a little bit up in the air. There is only one of us that didn't have Canyon Lucid in some order. I'm the only one that had Lucid above Canyon, but I think that goes back to...
I had Lucid above Canyon as well.
Oh, okay, the two of us, Wolf and I. For me, that comes down to Lucid, just his trajectory over the year, and I'm just so impressed by how much more consistent he has got. And unfortunately for Canyon, seeing him have a year that wasn't as consistent as last year
this is what you talked
was
about. Yeah.
really, really hard to watch, right? And he's had some incredible performances, but he's had others that have been a lot more muted. Whereas I feel like Lucid, it's been upward trajectory over this year.
So
Go ahead.
I have a different perspective because to me, I feel like even though Genji had a great year last year, I felt like when they suffered, it was on the back of sometimes Canyon being too inactive and Duro kind of filled in as like a sub jungler. And it was like he was making things happen. And obviously, Genji did not meet their goals for the year. And I felt like the weak link was Canyon. Something that made me put him second this year. Like, don't get me wrong, he still played very well last year. It's like I'm critiquing the team who were in the number one slot of the LCK. But I feel like this year he was a lot more proactive, and there were a lot more games I'm like, hey, Canyon is making that impact. He is setting up the plays for success. And I think a lot of the criticisms for Canyon have been just like defaulting back to inactivity and farming. But he also he brought Skarner in the meta, was having great games of that, where he was just making things happen. And even though Genji had their struggles, I felt like he was a much more active role for this team, and pushing them in the direction of victory more than I saw last year, where everyone was playing so well, it kind of felt like he just didn't need to. But in some games when he didn't and people were playing a bit worse, they suffered for it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I put him third.
I think that I put Lucid second and Canyon third because I feel like at the same time, Lucid's playstyle was actually closer to Kanavi's in the past. He had to kind of rein it in and figure out what was going on, being more of a team player than more of just a straight up, I'm going to go in all the time and they'll follow maybe. And this was a problem that D+ had last year where they couldn't all get on the same page, similar to Hanwha at the beginning of the year.
Are you talking about Lucid?
Yes.
Okay.
Lucid and D+ not being able to get on the same page. Hanwha had the same problem last year. D+ had the same problem last year that Kanavi and Hanwha had at the beginning of this year. But this year, Lucid was able to, after last year kind of being told, slow it down a little bit, he was able to ramp back into his more aggressive play style with a team that will play together. He and Career, jungle support synergy, really strong, Lucid and Career. And on the other side of things, I feel like Canyon struggled to adapt a little bit this year. Canyon's a big carry jungler, farm it up. I'm going to be really important and really impactful in the mid to late game. Not to say he has bad early games. His pathing is really good. But this year, it was more than just, I need to path aggressively. It's like, we need to fight for every scuttle. We need to fight for grubs. We need to fight for this dragon. And knowing his judgment on when to go in, when to fight, when to flash for the engage, wasn't as good as Lucid's oftentimes. It wasn't as good as Kanavi's, especially. So I ended up putting Canyon third because I think while he's been fairly consistent and definitely deserves that top 3 spot, I think for me, Lucid was able to adapt faster and get into more of a proper, he slotted into the right gear for D+ faster than Canyon was for this roster for this year, if that makes sense.
I think that's those are all true points, but I think that's a little bit more recency the last several rounds, and again, including the super high highs of EWC and the EWC qualifiers, because for me, if at the beginning of this split, Keen was having a little bit of trouble, Ruler was having a little bit of trouble, and as you brought up, Duro had less impact than he did last year. That was Canyon, the one that was setting up the success that Chovy had, especially earlier in the year. When he struggled, I think everyone struggled, obviously, but I think it was a longer period within the LCK than what Lucid showed. I think right now, Lucid is so good and so confident when he's there. He is one of the best junglers in the league, which is why he is my third team All-Pro vote. And he was more consistent over the year, but they had a slow start. They did have a slow start, and I think part of that was Lucid.
Yeah, I think this is actually really cool because our votes really do kind of reflect our mantras going in. Because I'm no secrets I'm about recency bias. These are teams that we're picking for right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have a player that was good in January because it's not January.
Yeah.
You know, for that reason.
I think mine is obviously the outlier. I deliberate a lot between Lucid and Owner. For me, I just felt like when D Plus were struggling earlier in the year in round 1 and 2, which, again, large part, I feel like
This is coming from the leader of the Lucid fan club, by the way.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Is this actually what this show is for? Is revoking the Lucid fan club membership?
I feel like Lucid really struggled with consistency, and I think there were games where it felt like he really fell quite flat. And even though obviously he's had a big glow up recently, I just think it wasn't enough to
He's
outweigh
just
that.
trying to not claim bias. This is the thing.
and
He's
then
just like leader of the fan club and just secretly has to not vote for him.
I think it was pretty close though. And then for Owner, I feel like when there was points earlier in the season, I think he had a really active role in the team, and he was pairing up well with Carrier. And it was for a good chunk when T1 was like pushing up the standings earlier on. I think he has really struggled recently, but I think that isn't purely down to him. I think there are games it is down to him, but I think also there's been some struggle with pressure from the solo lanes. If I think of like Lucid and Owner, they both had periods where they've been strong, and it's just like how much has it been? And obviously you guys tend more towards recency. I'm not eliminating the recency aspect, but I just feel like Owner had a longer stretch.
It's really hard to tread that line.
Yeah,
because
it's
like
difficult.
your brain is telling you about these things and how much do you overcorrect. Like
Yeah, I mean, Owner literally just got subbed out, and then got
Yeah.
subbed back in, and it was a little rough. You know, like I think that's something that's in all of our minds.
But he also did have like what was it the Pantheon game or the Lee Sin game? Like immediately after being subbed back in, you're like, oh damn.
That first game. Yeah, that
Lee
first
Sin
game.
game, yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
this guy. This guy's really good. Why did we sub him out? That was dumb. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
I think that's the thing. It's like it's super close, and it's like, you know, I could maybe go back and watch like 3 more VODs or sit on it for another day, and maybe I would have gone with Lucid third. But like, you know, I stand by my vote, and I think Owner
Absolutely.
had some great periods.
And
Yeah.
I think that like all of it is arguable, and I think that having these 4 players representing the top 4 in the jungle
Also,
looks great.
I want to note, I'm not saying any of us would have done this, but Charvel could not be put
Yep.
in these votes. He did not play enough matches. So if any of you are wondering, where's Charvel? Couldn't vote for him
You know,
at
I
all
would have
if
just
we wanted
I would
to.
have just kicked out Kanavi
Also-
and then just put only D plus junglers.
Interesting fact. There were no DNS players who were eligible for jungle because
Yeah.
none of them played enough games to be
Pioshik
eligible.
played 37 games. You needed to play 42.
Imagine if only Doive was eligible. Wouldn't
So
that
not
have been
only
the best?
so not only did Doiv play and then Charvel played later, but because DNS got 2-0'd so many times, Pioshik didn't end up getting enough games. To
they
be played.
just didn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well,
So that's the story there. There's
There you
no
go.
DNS junglers were
so
eligible.
that
there were only
person
9
who
votes.
was already in the comments, like, where's Charvel? You guys are clueless.
Unable,
That
he was
person
not
wasn't.
selectable.
He was not there. I'm sorry. He was not. He was watching Disney Plus. You know,
Oh,
because
yeah.
he obviously has the subscription.
Yeah.
So they're watching Disney Plus at the
Valid.
moment.
Yeah, that's valid.
just like finishing off the Mandalorian before the movie comes out or
I
something.
can't
like
wait
that.
till Pog State's on Disney Plus. That'd be great.
One day we'll get there. Let's move on to the mid lane, and I think that our firsts are probably pretty similar, as that Chovy guy is pretty hard to move from the first place. Also, congratulations to Chovy for being the sole POM winner every time we've ever had a POM,
Yeah.
and over the last 4 years.
11 of the series. He's been
3 years?
The
3 years.
Pum King.
He's pretty dang good.
Not the Gold King, but the Pum.
And in fact, we don't need to have too much of a conversation about second place either, because that Zeka guy has also been pretty good. So maybe we could talk about the Showmaker one first, because that's the 3 of us.
Yeah.
We put Showmaker on because he was the 3rd best mid laner. I also put him there a little bit because he was leader of the daycare. And I also, spoiler alert, put him on my MVP vote as well, because I think that he's the glue that held DK together alongside CV Max helping out. But to be a veteran of that tenure, like it's very similar to how Faker has played with teams in the past, right? I don't think you can talk about it the same way anymore because he is surrounded by so many veterans now. But if you remember back to like 2021, like Faker had to mold all of these players outside of Carrier, I think, in that roster. in order to be able to play on these big stages. And I think that we gave him a lot of props then, and I'm giving Showmaker a lot of props now for being able to bring up all of these young players alongside also having some absolute pop-off performances.
I think when you think about some picks in this meta right now, taking aside the Showmaker plus daycare situation, leadership, veteran, etc., when you think about some picks this year, Showmaker just instantly pops into your mind, right? When you think about winning lane on Victor, you're like, yeah, Showmaker, that's the one I think about. You're
And
like,
Smash.
how about Syndra? You know, Showmaker comes to mind. Then you're like, well, Ari. And it's like, oh, yeah, he's there again.
Bit of
And,
Orianna.
it's,
Not so much the Cassiopeia in that one time. That was a bit dicey.
That was the one time I was a little iffy, but that one I think about, like, you know, Chovy and BDD. But I think Showmaker has had an incredible year laning wise, and that's a big factor for me when I'm looking at these positions where you need to get prio and get out on the map. And unfortunately, even though Faker has had some of the most incredible map reads this year, incredible team fights on Akali, he has had maybe individually on mid lane some of the best games, period, even in losses that we've seen from him in a while, where you're like, wow, Faker, that was insane. The
What was that?
Painter position swap thing that happened with the Galio, he's had so many great Galio moments. I think Faker has had incredibly high highs, but he walks out of the lane with one of the worst CS differences, and in the Legend group, the worst CS difference at 10 minutes of any mid laner. And I think that I can't, we're looking at Showmaker and even some of the other mids that are competing for this spot that aren't in our top three, he doesn't hit that metric. And I think that even though he's a great mind, right, for the game and shot calling and all that stuff that's ambiguous, like Ox said earlier, we can't prove that, we can't see that, we can't show that. And as a result, I can't vote for only Faker's highs. I have to vote for Showmaker's consistency, his dominance in lane, and all the other things that we've just talked about. So I respectfully, Faker, I couldn't do it this time. I couldn't put you in my top three.
I couldn't put him in my top 4, I don't think. I think BDD would still be there because of, like, and I know I'm the recency guy. That's why Showmaker's in there. But if I was the guy that was trying to look back at the whole year, I would probably put BDD there because I attribute a lot of, like, I know you put a lot of that to Perfect. I don't. I put a lot of that to BDD and the way he plays around Cuz and things like that. So I don't think that I could have put him up there. But I think that, like, Faker is such an enigma. It's so difficult to really evaluate it because I also think that Faker should have been on the coaches list because I think that he does that role more than anyone else, right? And I know that, like, people get upset and like say, like, oh, coaches need to be fired. And it's like, wait, are you talking about Faker? Because Faker, like, a lot of the great draft decisions that have happened, like, across the years,
Rumble mid,
Yep.
like,
That happened
just a
last
few
week.
weeks ago.
that was like he accepted that because, like, Doran's like, I need to play Vayne top. He's like, I could play Rumble. You know, like, these sorts of things, like, and they discussed it afterwards. Thankfully, like, we have that insight. But so much of how these things happen is attributed to Faker, and how do you quantify it? And so, like, I respect the Faker choice, but I can't look past not having a very good laning phase, making it very difficult for his team to win. And I think that T1 has probably the best player in the league and the best support to ever play the game in their bottom lane. And they still have not been able to find great results against a lot of the teams in the Legend group, especially since MSI. And I think that's to do with Doran and Faker having rough laning phases and Owner and Painter as well, struggling to figure out how to play when they have solo lanes having rough laning phases.
Yeah, I think for me, this was one that was also close, kind of like I talked about my third jungle one. I think the struggle, kind of what Wolf was saying, is the consistency that's really lacking. And the highs are there. The Rumble is a recent example, but there's been lots of games where I've thought, wow, Faker's really... If Faker was always at this level, no-brainer. But I think there has been some rough performances. A lot of it's been personified in the laning. And I also think that what Max said is true, is that, like, the value he adds to the team is insane. But it's not in his laning. And when I'm looking at the gameplay on the Rift, I feel like that is a weakness that has caused issues for them. Even if he has a great sense for the game and knows how to make these big plays, I think that was something that just edged Showmaker above for me for that consistency level. And even when things were struggling a bit, to me, when there were struggles earlier in the year, I think it more came off on top and jungle. And that's not to say Showmaker was flawless, but I think he's just had some performances that really stick in the mind, like on things like the Victor. And I think that is, well, I know why I put him in third.
Yeah. I think for me, when I was looking at these two, and again, this to me was the hardest one. This was the hardest one. Because Showmakers had a fantastic year. A decent amount of that came at EWC and things that I don't look at for our all-pro vote. Despite that, still very close given the success that they had in the later rounds. And the way that I quantified this was like, it's almost like because T1 had more struggles this year, Faker had to be two different players. In rounds 1 and 2, Faker led the league in solo kills until the very end. Chovy took it away. It was by far the most. In rounds 3 and 4, there was one player who did more damage with less gold. It was Vikla, and then it was Faker by a lot. Showmaker gets most of the gold. He's actually, I think, 9th or 10th for damage per gold. Like, he is a gold-generating guy, and then has had those big performances. And I think it's that malleability towards the team, and given the fact the team still finished third, where does the success come from? In my opinion, right, it wasn't Doran on the top side of the map and the highs and lows that he's had. It wasn't at Owner with the highs and lows that he had. And I do know that they have Pays and Carry down on the bottom side of the map, but it wasn't just them. It was Faker being able to play the multiple different roles that the team needed to find the level of success that they had. And so I think at that point, because when I look at D+, I look at Smash and Career and how solid that they've been as well, a little foreshadowing as well. And so I think Showmaker played a big part in that as well, but I think a lot of that had to do with Lucid and Smash and Career. And so I had to kind of give and take somewhere when I look at where did the team's success come from. And so I did end up taking away from Showmaker, giving more to Faker, and then giving it more to Lucid, and then not to Owner. So that was my thinking rationale on it, given the fact that he's had to play multiple different roles throughout this year.
Why did you step away from BDD?
I think BDD, when the slump started happening, he was trying too hard. There were many times where he was forcing it. Going back to even when they played, was it D+ or was it T1 when on the Syndra where he like flash ults and it was
last
like
week.
That to me personified not the success that they had, but the struggle that they had. It was okay, things are going wrong, time to BDD mode it, and there were a handful
T1,
of times where
wasn't
that
it?
happened.
Yeah.
And then when I go back to how KT found success, like I said, gave a lot of it to Perfect. But then the early season gave a lot of it to Aiming as well. Like Aiming was having a fantastic year when things were going well. And when things went wrong, they went south and I thought they would fix it. And then once the trade happened, I was like, oh, all right, let's see if it gets better. And it didn't. Like,
Everyone
for KT.
knows BDD is my favorite player, but sometimes like when you're in a situation where your team is struggling, like I think BDD this year, he and Cuz together, they're both lined up in this. They just brute forced like their heads into a brick wall oftentimes trying to hard carry. It was like BDD tried to lift the boulder so hard that his arms came out of his sockets. Like he's trying so hard to out hands it, out mechanics it, when I think it was a product of frustration. And who knows how much that ties into the roster shift we saw later on or not, but I think he was clearly frustrated with how the team was playing, but Cuz and he were also kind of doing that together, and they were bad for each other. They kept making bad decisions together, and it just happened for too long. Even though BDD had such an incredible early year, and also had some really highs at the end of the year, including the game he played today. His Rise game was out of control, but I just think there's no way you could put BDD over Showmaker right now, given and the Faker I can understand from your perspective, from your criteria, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Even he's BDD, he's the classic, he's my man, but not this time.
Yeah, it's so hard. And I want to recontextualize this before we move on to bot lane. It's so hard to choose mid lane in this league.
Yeah.
Our mid laners are amazing. Remember, Scout exists, right?
Yeah.
And he's had like an amazing comeback this year. I think it's so hard to put any Rise team in though because we don't get tape of them against the top dogs.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of impossible. Like you might be watching Closer have some great moments, and we did, but that was in the Kesper Cup, and that was against in times where it's like it's hard to quantify and stuff like that.
Just generally, I found this All Pro pretty difficult. You know, I
Yeah.
put a lot of thought in, discussed with a lot of people beforehand because I was like, this is, there's a lot to factor in, and I feel like a lot of players who I think had great moments and you could argue they should be in there.
Yeah, and that comes with the parity of the league. Like this year, there was a lot of. We ended up with a similar kind of like top, but like even then, it was
I think
just very
last
exciting.
year,
Throughout
Legend Group, Genji beat everyone below them, T1 beat everyone below them, HLE beat everyone
Yeah,
below
it was
them.
very tier
just-
listy.
It was tier listy. It was a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, I
But
feel like this year is definitely very different. Let's move on, though. Let's have a look at the bottom lane. I think that we're going to be a lot quicker from here on out because I think that we're going to agree a little bit more. I think also this one plays into my recency a little bit more for my decisions. So I think that the positions that we all have our players are a little bit different for that reason.
it's really funny that we have the split again.
Yep.
You guys have the most
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
criteria
and we
do.
didn't actually discuss
about
this
it.
beforehand.
I didn't talk about it with you.
Yeah.
I didn't know either.
Obviously, we all put Pays as first because Pays, I think, is probably the
What a
best
year.
player in the world.
Yeah.
Like he is just unbelievable.
Crazy to me that people called him in his time on Genji, where he also, by the way, had like the most pentas that year
Yeah.
and popped off on Zerayumi. So many times, yeah, people were like, "Oh, Lehens carried him, Jovi carried him. He got the pentas because he cleaned
There was
up
that
the
one
kills."
time that Dorian carried him. I stand by that.
He's
Agreed.
must watch League of Legends. Like so excited.
But he was called Passenger Pays by many of his haters. That was his
Yeah.
nickname, and it's crazy to think that like back then I completely disagreed with that sentiment. But when you look at it now, it's like, well, those same haters are like, well, I guess he got better. I'm like, but this was always his core. Like he was always
Yeah.
like this. He was always really good. How he plays on this team though, he is wielded like a weapon. He's the machete that swings through the bamboo and cuts it to shreds. Like it's crazy. He is insane.
To me, some of the moments I think about on his debut, obviously had a lot of phenomenal ones, but there was some struggles in high pressure situations.
Yep.
And also, it did feel like Genji were funneling a lot of resources to him, which really worked well, and was a good decision. But I feel like so much more, especially having come off JDG and now in a T1, it feels like it's him taking and him being like, I'm making the play, I'm doing this, I'm finding favor in the bot lane, I'm getting this. Less about being set up as he's grown as a player and being like, I am in charge.
I feel
and
like
him
he's
and
taken
carry it.
responsibility
Yeah.
a lot more, and I think that's
He was before
scary.
a late game threat. Now he is the early game threat, the mid game threat, and the late
Yes,
game threat.
100%. You know, before he was like insurance, and you can rely on him in the late game to carry, and now it's just like it's hard to know going into a game, are they just going to dominate us in lane? Are they just going to scale up because we picked a too passive or too defensive of a lane? It's just he's a very versatile player now and just so good.
Yeah, and then he's also with Carrier, which is just another ridiculous thing.
A little unbalanced.
Then we do have the split between the two of us. I'll go first because I think this, for me, is a lot to do with how Genji look now versus how they looked at the start of the year, which was all over the place and a bit of a mess. I think there's a reason why Ruler has picked up the last few POMs for the team. There's one match that really comes to mind, and that was the Kalista Renata draft after no one was playing Kalista Renata. They put Varus in the top lane. I don't remember, I think mid was like Syndra or something like that. It was this incredibly technical comp to play. And Ruler and Duro just dominated. And it made us remember, like we were thinking back, we're like, oh crap, yeah, you're not allowed to let Ruler play this champion. And it's 2026, and that is still
true.
the case. And we've seen it attempted since from other players, and they haven't found the same level of impact. And you have to like take down the expectation of the champion because you are not watching this player play. And Pays. Pays is also like a ludicrous Callista player, but he's a ludicrous everything player now, and I don't know how to quantify it. It's very similar to Faker ruining stats for everyone because he's always the most. But I think that Ruler, like in the last few weeks, has really had this like massive return to form, which for me has allowed Gen G to finish first and really put this team like back together again. And I felt like that the Humpty Dumptying of Gen G deserved a little bit of praise.
In AD carry, I value more the ability to win lane and win team fights and be a carry than to be more utility focused. And I think Ruler is more consistent than Smash in terms of his ability to both win the lane and win team fights in the late game. Ruler has always been criticized for getting caught while he's farming mid lane, right? Like the Ruler spot, all of those things, all of the history that's happened with certain ultimates catching him and stuff like that. That's fair, that happens. But very rarely these days when he gets caught does it really even impact the game that much. Like he's still just respawns and comes back to a team fight. He isn't getting caught those critical moments where we used to. I coined him in like 2021 as the golden snitch because like if you catch Ruler the game is over. Like because that happened so many times back then. We're all like, oh, okay, well, here we go. It's going to 3 games in this series. Even though they were winning, he stepped too far forward. I always felt that Ruler is the type of player that can weak side, but very rarely chooses to, and they very rarely play towards that because he has so many picks he can win lane with. I think about his Corki. I think about his Xayah, where he like will pull that one out from time to time, he'll win the lane with it in a bad matchup. We'll make an Alistar lane look playable, and I think that Ruler just has something veterancy-wise that Smash doesn't have that allows him to constantly get prio. And I think Smash is very close to Ruler right now in that, but I'm the type of person who really values in bottom lane for both support and for AD carry, but more so AD carry, the amount of times that the jungler can come gank for you, the amount of times you can set up dives, the amount of times you're crashing waves in and denying the enemy AD carry farm. Like playing the strong side is what I would celebrate for AD carry. I know there are other teams that play the other way and they try to play through top side, but in this meta, this year, I'm a strong side guy and I think Ruler is the most consistent next to Pays at that role.
Yeah, that's why I put him there. I really denied between Ruler and Smash. But for me, like, they're basically interchangeable. I just wanted to give it to Ruler this time because we're going to be without him sooner. Smash is at the very first year of his career, right? If we don't include LCK Cup last year. So there's plenty of time. I think Smash has the potential to be the best player in the league after Pays leaves. Unfortunately, they're both very young. So it might be hard, but I think they could be contesting for the top spot as Pays has been a little bit more established.
Pays has way more experience, right? Smash will probably catch up eventually.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It's going to be very exciting to watch, I think, both those guys. I think for me, Smash was where, again, going back to where's the team success come from, I think it was down from the bottom side of the map. And so Smash and Career have been so strong and so solid and, like, dependable. And I feel like when we think about the whole year after LCK Cup, Ruler struggled with the Ruler spot type stuff. And it wasn't even like in mid lane. Sometimes it was like further back and it was happening a lot.
I mean, he had a rough start to the year.
Yes. And it was early and they were finding wins, but they were losing a lot. And that was when we were like, oh, this Gen G team isn't auto win, 17-1 type stuff. And some of that was like throws. They were throws. And a decent amount of that was to Ruler, and I think a lot of that had to do with the controversy that was happening at the time and a lot of the noise around that, as well as the struggles at the homestand. Like at the homestand, when they went 0-2, a decent amount of that was the bottom side of the map, and I think when they turned it around, it was when Ruler solo killed Gumishi on the bottom side of the map on the, the Misfortune? It was the Jin Misfortune. He just shot him on the 4th shot, and Guma died, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my god,
Ruler. That was a loud click.
Yes, Ruler might be the most informed AD carry right now after that happened. And so that to me happened a little too late. Like that happened too late over the course of the year. And then when I think about the success that D Plus had, I give a lot of it to Smash, especially after EWC. Especially there, it was like, wow, he's going toe to toe. He's getting solo kills in the bottom lane. I feel like you don't have to worry about it, and allows them to focus more on what Lucid was doing. And then Gumayushi, putting Guma here third. When I looked at the stats yet again, it's one of those things where he gets less resources, does more. He is one of the league leaders in damage done after the laning phase. And I think the tough part about looking at laning stats specifically was because he is known to, on this team, be given the least amount of resources. And so it's like, okay, then how much of the team's success goes down to him compared to someone like Teddy or like Taeyun? I thought Taeyun would have been a very close shout.
I think Taeyun
given
is
the successes
definitely up
there.
there. I think he's pretty close to fourth for me. And I was a generational Taeyun hater. I need to let everyone know. I just really was not a fan of this guy. I felt like he was really struggling, and then went over to the LPL, and it looked like it was the whole boo thing, right? Like, I saw that play on WE, I'm like, oh, someone's going to fall for the Taeyun trap. And then they did, and then he got traded and became amazing.
Kellen diff.
It was maybe it's just Kellen. Maybe it actually is. But I've been noticing like so many like of the arrogant moves that Taeyun used to make, he just doesn't make anymore.
Yep.
And maybe it is just Kellendiff teaching him how to be a better person or something like that, and like not have he doesn't have that same arrogance that he used to when he was playing.
It did feel like the last time he did that was the match after the trade when he played Ezreal and was just dunking on Nongshim. And then after that, like his laning stats were so high in the first half. When we got to round 3 and 4, they dropped his solo kills and all that stuff. It was no longer that like ahead. He was still ahead, but it wasn't by as much.
Yeah. He's been so impressive. Yeah. Like I think we do need to give him a little bit of a shout out. But Dan, we'll let you talk about Guma, and then we can move on to support.
Yeah, so, I mean, we obviously talked a lot about Smash already when we were talking earlier, so I'm not going to really add to that. I think for me, you know, talking between like Guma and Ruler, I think Ruler I didn't include because even though I completely agree his form recently has been back to that level we expect, which is such a high bar. For me, I think a lot of Gen G struggles came from the bot lane, and, you know, I was so high on Dura last year, so it felt rough to see, but it just felt like they weren't performing that same caliber. Ruler was getting caught, and it definitely...
Don't worry, Guma was getting caught.
Guma was getting caught too here at the end, like for sure. I want to make sure we note that too, but that was recency.
And I think he was the worst performer on Gen G, and obviously they're a first place team, so that's not really that much of a critique, but I think he was a lot less consistent than we typically see Ruler being, and I think the laning was a lot weaker when we had that sort of lane focus meta, and I think that, you know, compared to a player like Pays, who I think was such an active piece of why T1 succeeded, I think at times Ruler was kind of the opposite, which obviously the form he is in now is so night and day compared to that, but I think it was just, when I think of the split as a whole, this was not even in like top 5 years for me for Ruler.
Yeah, and it's hard because he's had some pretty incredible years.
Yeah, you know, which that I think it's hard to like separate from that. It's like you're used to a player playing at such a high level.
It's exactly the same as me with Keen and putting Shio above Keen. Like,
Yeah.
Keen has set a ludicrous bar for himself.
Yep.
And I understand, like, Ruler setting a ridiculous bar for himself as well.
Yeah, it's tricky.
And wanting to bypass the consistency.
And I think Guma's obviously had some moments where he's gotten caught out, he's struggled, but I do think there are some games where he is really just left out to dry, especially when we transitioned in that meta where everyone was just like ditching bot lane. And he's also had some great moments where he was able to defensively play and actually end up succeeding when there's like a timing delight comes in to cover just at the right moment when they're aggressing. I felt he obviously fit to that meta very quickly, and it was a big reason why they had so much success going into MSI.
What Ghost was for Dom1 Gaming is what Guma is for Hanwha right now. And
Yeah.
I think that people don't want to say that, don't want to accept it, but it's not a bad thing. It's not
No,
like
it's
saying
fine.
a bad
He
word.
doesn't need
His
to be on
job
this
is different.
list
His
to
job
be
is
great.
his job is different right now than
Yep.
it has been in the past.
Yep.
And that doesn't fit my criteria, so he's not in my top 3, but I think if we were talking about a very different specific criteria, like about how well you play with less resources, he'd
How
be number
good you
one,
are for the team
know?
you're on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
so
I mean-
it's hard, you know?
Yeah.
For me, I feel like I'm always... My perspective is a bit different because I obviously put heavy emphasis on support, and support is the role of low resources. So I can definitely see how a lot of people lean towards you get the resources, you're the carry, you make the impact.
Yeah, like if it's
they're
about
going up there.
efficiency and like the value that you get, like no matter how many resources you have, then yeah, obviously.
That's
like,
not
Boomer
the
this year.
only metric I'm looking at, but it's a reason I put him third because I think he did. And even the games, like I think back to the Ash games where they won despite him having a lot of deaths. And I'm not saying every death wasn't his fault, but a lot of deaths, it was like this wasn't.
Yeah, he
this
had
is
the
kinda how
0-7
team set
power
up.
spike.
Yeah, and then he still made that impact, which, Namgoon followed that path.
Yeah, imagine getting one-upped from
Yeah.
the 0-7. Feels bad.
I see a lot of people, especially online, who like hyper focus on numbers like KDA and stuff like that, and it's cool, right? Don't get me wrong, but I think so much of League of Legends comes down to like these key moments and making the big impact. And we've had games where like there's been a lot of deaths and it just hasn't really amounted to much. And I think Guma was in a position where he died and it just didn't change his ability to impact the game, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that for Wolf and I, the recency factor plays into it. I also think that Gumushi has been just not the main character on his team, and sometimes there are too many chefs, and you don't need to put him on the list. He's what they require. But this isn't a list about like who's would
the
fit
best
the
ever,
best onto HLE. Then
Exactly.
yeah, obviously he would be number one.
If we had a top lane meta where everyone was playing carry top lane and one guy was playing tanks, I probably wouldn't put the tank guy or who's playing through bottom lane on my all pro vote for
That's
top
why
lane.
it's so hard to vote for Keen too, because he never gets given counterpick. Like he just like they always leave him out to dry. He's like, nah, I'll soak the blind pick. I'll soak the blind pick. He's been doing it all year, and we still vote him really highly. But he still has to go through that every time. Like I feel like Zeus does get the star treatment a little bit on that front.
This is my struggle with POM as well, because I have a very like holistic view. It's like,
Yeah.
whether they carry or not, I think what did they do for this team in this situation, in this game, and I feel like I completely respect your perspectives, but I think a lot of people are more drawn to who
No,
is the
I think
main
it's
character.
cool. I think like having a different perspective
Yeah.
on it is really important. And let's have a different perspective on supports, or let's not. I think we're probably relatively. Oh, okay, we're a little bit
wow.
different. Golly gee.
We lined up again? I didn't think anyone was going to vote Delight that high
I
with
took
me.
a risk on this one, I have to admit.
I think it's fine, though.
I did as well. You took a very different risk than I did on the third all pro. I think this is definitely somewhat recency biased, but I've also been pretty okay. So we all went carrier first.
Yeah.
We can just kind of speed through that part. Delight is the second vote for Degon and for Ox, but Delight didn't make either mine or Max's.
I couldn't
All
work
pro.
out whether to put a struggling Duro or a subbed out Delight. And I was like, you know what? I need to just follow my heart.
Career for me was the easy second choice, I think, because I just think he's had. When you think about like all the incredible plays we've had this year, I think about Carria's flash buffered Seraphine ult, and then I'm like, oh yeah, Career also did that. Like, think about some of the crazy moments he's had, the saved series, and yes, some of them outside of the LCK, some of them in EWC, but Career's just been so good, so consistent, and has been not only a strong laner, but also a strong support to Lucid in jungle support, and he's also making these late game team fight game defining plays on Rakan, on Seraphine. He's just constantly making such a large impact on these big picks. When they give him the support that can carry, he will do it. Like we're like, oh, it's a Rakan draft. I'm not sure about that. He's like, oh, I am.
Lux.
I'm gonna put Lux.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Honestly, like Carrier and Korea are the only ones I trust to play that champion in the LCK.
For Duro over Delight, for me, it was more simply about, I think for a lot of people say both Duro and Delight are having a year that's not as strong as they've had in the past. I think Duro's having a more solid one. I think Duro has not stood out as much as Delight to me in terms of having a bad year. I think Delight's just, he doesn't look like himself oftentimes. Like he's not taking over the entire game. He's looking a lot better at the very end, but that's like way too recency bias for me for like the very end. Whereas I think Duro we hold to a really high standard, and that hasn't necessarily been met. But I also don't think that next to Delight anyone's really that much in the conversation. I know you voted for Namgung, but I wasn't ready to make that plunge myself.
Well, I actually think that this has been a bit of a drop-off for Delight, especially trying to figure out where he fits in the meta now after, like, trying really hard to figure out the whole Enchanter thing. It then, I think, impacted his ability to understand how to engage alongside Kanavi, and I think that they have really struggled to kind of mesh together. I know they won MSI. Obviously, it's worked out at points.
They fixed it, and then it kind of
Yeah, but
declined a little
it's
bit.
still something that they're not quite figuring out. And for me, Namgung is just such a fun story. Because, like, I was talking about how I weight, like, progression. And, like, holy shit, guys. Like, this was from 0 to hero for this guy. And, yeah, he's had some rough performances. Yeah, they've fallen behind in lane. But, like, even today, watching this best of 5 against KT, without Namgung, they would have been 3-zipped. Like, very, very easily.
If they won that game, he would have been POM.
Oh,
I'm pretty
100%.
sure.
Like,
On Nico, yeah.
like his, and like so many of these like incredible moments, like setting up the pentakill for Roma on the lock, like Rakan engages, like this guy has just been
Elise,
figuring,
Pike.
and he's got the fun picks too. He's like young Lehens. And it's just really cool to see this like new guy come up. And so I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I don't think Delight has been as good as he was in the past. I think Duro's had a bit of a rough season. I just think that it's Namgung. I'm just putting him there. I had to follow my heart.
I think if there was an award for turning haters into lovers, I think Perfect is number 1, and then I think Namgung is number 2.
I mean, he's a bro, so he's already going to be pretty close.
well,
to
I mean,
number
I
one.
was already kind of like critical. I was like, I don't know. I mean, we have
about
Teddy
Lord
and all this stuff,
Morgan?
and he's grown a ton
He
here.
already
But yeah,
won.
I see that one. You want to go ahead and go?
So I think for me, you know, whenever I talk about this, I feel like I always talk about the exclusions more than like the inclusions. But I mean, for me, I think Korea was kind of something we discussed extensively, and like the impact he had, especially as a rookie player. When I was thinking about Delight and Duro, I feel like Duro and I think Ruler have obviously struggled. I talked about Ruler's struggles before, and I think we're just not seeing the same impact that we had compared to last year. I think Duro is playing that second jungle role, and maybe that is a really high bar that we'll hold them to. But I think for me, Delight really shone when we started to move to those more roaming picks, and that was a style that fit HLE so well. Like, it felt like the style was made for them, where they're playing the more proactive picks on the map, and it really freed up Delight to be able to make that impact once again. And then he's come back sometimes with like classics like the Alistair and stuff. And I just feel like when you see Delight engage more than any support, when he's on his picks and he's on things like the Alistair and he sees a window, it's like his headbutt has a longer range, and it's like his pulverize has a bigger AoE. And I think he hasn't been a consistent year for him, but I think when the meta came into their favor, he really shone. And I think it's also harder to shine in the meta that we had earlier in the year for support in general.
Yeah, just playing Karma every game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's a roughie.
I think he kind of did his job there, but I think really when, especially in their path, it rode to MSI, I think that's where we saw the sort of the Delight who, you know, I felt like deserved the second spot. And I know I said I focused just on the regular season, but it's so hard to not have it all mixed up.
And also, this is support as well. And I think that your heart probably plays more of a role when you get to the support role.
Well, I didn't put Platter on here, so
Pleta did
But
play
you
this-
would have if you could have, okay? 40 games and he would have been in there.
Yeah, 40 more games. I think for me, just real quick, I think this was the substitution that I felt like Ohm created a situation and opened Pandora's box and navigated it well. He's like, we're putting in bluffing. It's a reward for being first team, first in the solo
I think
queue
it
thing.
was blunder.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I appreciate that. But that wasn't a substitution that I fully agreed with. Later on, when it did fall off a little bit, the meta was changing away from engaging. And it's like, I'm playing an Enchanter. And they're like, well, Kanavi's still going, so you got to figure out how to go. I think coming back and then seeing that shift as well was why I had Delight in front of Career. But again, Career has had, when the ball has been in Career's court, more than not, he's taken the shot, and it's been very, very successful on those carries. And it hasn't always been, but when it has, it's been very fun to watch. But I think the Light's more integral to Hanwha Life's success than Career has had impact on those wins.
I
think
feel
it's
like
a lot of
these-
Smash.
These second and third, like we unanimously carry. I feel like the whole KR side's probably gonna like practically be unanimously carry. I feel like these votes are the ones that will make people the least upset because it feels like it's really just about what you value and what you see and what you remember.
Yeah,
it's
I think
so
it's all
so
justifiable.
ambiguous because support does so many things. There's support jungle, there's vision control, there's the 2v2,
There's roaming,
there's like
champ
level
pool.
1 in the top lane. How well did you play that part of the
Yeah,
game?
I mean,
Like,
if we
such
see
a
Valdez
versatile
and he's
role.
got like effort on the list, I'd be like, I see that.
Yeah, I think
Because like KT was so good at the start of the year.
I considered it.
The one thing I wanted to say about the whole substitution thing is because obviously I had 2 players in my All Pro who got subbed out with Owner and Delight. To me, when a player gets subbed out, I don't really factor it in unless the team like massively shifts in the positive. Like if, for example, Charvel made a massively positive impact.
That's ruined our chances of having Pioshik in our lists.
Yeah, but I feel like, Delight, when he got subbed out, I didn't really feel like he was the issue getting subbed out, and then they didn't really.
I
suddenly just
I
come
don't think
online.
that's. I think that it was a mistake for
Yeah.
Life to ever sub him out at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should mess with something that's working.
But I do think it hurts perception when players are subbed out.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
not
also,
saying any
it's
of you
also
guys
so
have done
hard
that,
because
but like
we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And so like a lot of these substitutions that happen, I think we need to take it with a massive grain of salt because it could be that players aren't getting along. Like we've had player trades based on like weird stuff that's been happening behind the scenes. Like the aiming trade is a great example of that. Still not entirely sure. Don't really want to know. It happened. Whatever. Let's
BNK
move on.
Purex, Diablo, Vikla, or
Yeah,
whatever.
that
came
was a
out.
little
Yeah.
bit more public, but like that's another one of those situations. I don't want to hold that against Delight, but I still think that he wasn't necessarily meshing the same way, if that makes sense. But that's a good clarification.
Yeah, I do think there was a lot of challenges, especially LCK Cup. The whole 10th place thing, because like him and Peanut had been together for such a long time,
Yeah.
and then switching up and be like, oh, you're with Kanavi now, which is like a wildly different thing. Took time to adjust to.
And it must be very hard to play on a Kanavi team as someone that was doing all of your engaging, because then you've just got this like puppy ahead of you, and you're like, come back, like that's your new role when you were the one out in front beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's hard to scout ahead when you've got the team already there.
Yep.
MVP first. I think all of us unanimous on this one. Pays has been unbelievable.
I was surprised by this actually because I thought there would be Kanavi voters. I almost went for Kanavi because
I almost went for
I-
all 3 of these in number 1, actually. But, sorry, number 2. Pays was always my number 1.
I thought because of how Kanavi shaped the entire league, changed the meta, stuff like that, that people were going to be like, oh, I think Kanavi is like the face of 2026 LCK. Like if there was an LCK magazine, 2026, like Kanavi would be on the cover, right? Just because he shaped this entire team, 10th place to first place, right? So I thought, I really want to give it to Kanavi, but I had to give it to Pays for the reasons that everyone's saying is obvious now, and for the interest of time, I'm not going to get super into because we already talked about it.
I actually
for AD carry.
think a lot of people will have like Chovy in first place and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that we were unanimously Pays. I'm curious to see if that's going to be the case when we get the whole vote story tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm going to be excited to watch that one. I think for me, when you are MVP, I want to just have that standout MVP moment, and I think Pays provided 2, which was his Lucian against D plus Kia, where he perfectly dodges the Cinder Ball by Showmaker and then steps up and kills him with a culling. It was like pixel perfect. It was amazing to watch. And then the other one was on Talia with the Q when he uses Zonia's and the Q then
that was
goes
so
off.
sick.
He blocks everything as he's untargetable. They get the kill, T1 win, and was the clear engine for the team. Like to me, you had the best player have 2 of the best plays that you're going to stick on a highlight reel, and that's just 2 of many. That doesn't include all the solo kills, doesn't include all the lane dominance. Like I think by far he was the
Kanavi
MVP.
can set people up. When we talk about like how HLA has to play through Kanavi, like they wield Kanavi like a weapon. He is the weapon. He's the initiator. Like T1 can't play through anywhere but Pays, and he's the one who's doing the damage. Like he's the one who's carrying the game. So Kanavi, like he can do a ton, but he isn't going to do as much, and that's why ultimately I went for Pays as well in this one. So
I think it's really hard. Yeah.
For me, when I think about MVP, I mean, first I want to say is that, we've said a lot about Kanavi and being that centerpiece, warping the game around him and dictating how the jungle is played in the LCK. And Hanwha really lived and died by him. and they had some huge achievements, but they also had some struggles. I feel like the thing that separated that to Pays is when T1 struggled, it was never about Pays. Like, he was always just an absolute star throughout, playing
and
in
if he
incredible
had
form.
a neutral game, God, that team looked different.
And that's the thing for me, MVP is so much about, like, what does this player bring to this team and what would they be without him? And could you fill this role with someone else? And I feel like Kanavi was so close to being that, but T1, Pays was just like the centerpiece. And I feel like if you take him out, there was such a big hole, and I don't know how you'd be able to make it up with how they were playing the game. They'd completely have to change everything. And I know that's also true for HLE, but I just think Pays was just in incredible form. Incredible form.
And I think that's why I put Chovy second. The same thing there, right? The 11 POMs, it was while everyone was going through a slump at Gen G, but Chovy was that consistent to keep the team humming along and getting to first.
Yeah. I actually found this one very, very difficult, and then decided to default to what is its most valuable player.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chovy, I think, is
So whoever got paid the most, right? That's what you...
in snacks from home grounds. Yes. I had to give it to Showmaker because of his task on this team with these children is so hard, and and then also being expected to be at that 2020 world champion form 6 years later is also an absolute massive achievement. And he's had phenomenal performances in lane at the same time. I really wanted to find a way to put him on my list. And I value that extraordinarily highly. I think that Showmaker has had just such a hard task and being able to do it in such an incredible way whilst still smiling. And then you go back to the struggles that he had with love of the game and all this sort of stuff last year, and seeing him just grinning and smiling after these matches, even in losses. I don't know. You can't take that second place Showmaker away from me.
I think that's a good argument.
I love it.
Yeah.
I put Chovy third because he's Chovy. He was consistent. He saved the game for Gen G too many times.
Yeah. I also think that Chovy might even just win first place.
Yeah.
Chovy, to me, Chovy wasn't even that standout, but it was the when in doubt vote Chovy. Because every game, every series, they're like, yeah, but Chovy had that one play.
Yep.
Or, oh my
That's the
God,
hard
his
thing.
side
It's
laning was
boring.
running. It's so hard to actually define or sometimes even see what Chovy did in the moment. Like, he doesn't have the career Rakan ult. He doesn't have the carry of Flash Seraphine ult. He
It's
doesn't
the
have some
minion
crazy shit.
realm warp that
you know.
fixed the lane on the top
Honestly,
side.
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
little
nice.
things like that.
Yeah,
The fact that he's always generating a lead in lane. The fact that he's always getting prio for Dragon. These are the things you can't see if you just watch the replay of the team fight. But it's like, why did they win the team fight? Because Chovy was there first. Because he won the lane again. Chovy had to be in top 3. Even though he was not my number 3, he had to be in there.
I understand that. And I feel a little bit bad about this one purely because he needs to be there, and I refuse to do it because I needed to put Showmaker there. I also needed to put Kanavi there. I think Kanavi is, you cannot put another jungler in this team and the team would be the same. That would just never work.
I think for me,
Although I guess he'd get T1
Chovy does
last
set
year,
such an
basically.
insane standard for himself. I think he has had years where, there's years he's locked in first All Pro, and I'm he has had the most insane performance, or splits rather, because when we had the split system, where he just completely dominated, and it felt like he was playing at a level so much above everyone else. I didn't feel that this year, but I still feel like he was an incredible player, and when Genji struggled, it felt like he was struggling by far the least, and was making these big plays, and managed to get them to first place still, despite this journey that they had, despite having the 2 series lost in a row, which they hadn't had in 5 years. He still was just able to again and again put out these consistent performances. So to me, it's always difficult when you're looking at MVP because it's there's so many criteria as to what you define it in terms of value. And I think Chovy definitely deserved a spot on my list. And I think he just has often had a spot on people's lists. I think last year I was more keen on Keen. And the impact he had, but I think the year before that, Chovy was just in insane form, and that kind of felt like how Pays was for me this year. And then Kanari was so much about how he warped everything in the whole league and his team about him. But
When was the last time we had an MVP who wasn't on the first place team?
BDD. Last year.
That was player of the year.
Ah, that was
That
different.
was LCK Awards after they made Worlds.
Because Pays might get it. I don't know. Like, I feel like my heart is telling me that no, actually, the Korean side will just vote for Chovy because that's what they always do, has the most PM points. But, like, I don't know. That'd be interesting if he gets it.
Yeah, I find it really interesting as well because I feel like we are always in the minority for
Yeah.
how MVP is voted for. But now, unfortunately,
Just quickly, I feel like
Okay.
the view that I've kind of seen is that MVP is just like all pro, but not role specific. It's like, okay, who is your most all pro? That's your MVP. So like,
I think we take the value.
yes,
With the
I
V.
view it completely
Yeah.
different. Like, I've had times where
we should be VIP voters
I've had-
instead of MVP voters.
a good example was like, last year, I think, was it last year? I don't know. I've had years where I'm like, okay, this person's highest in my all pro, but this person who's below them in all pro is actually in my MVP and they're not.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's different. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that,
And I think,
it's
like,
different definitions.
I like that too because it separates it just a
Yeah.
little bit.
I keep looking at the prompter because I feel like somebody is telling us this recording will self-destruct in 10 seconds.
Yeah, we're actually Inspector Gadgeting pretty hard at this point in time. So, in order to avoid explosion, it is time for us to call it a night. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure that you subscribe, like, do all of that fun stuff, and leave all of your insightful comments, and try to keep it a little bit civil, and we will read them and try our very best to respond. Wait, are you guys
Good
gonna
job
high
on a
five?
quick episode, guys.
Yay!
Nice try, LCK team.
See you later, Poggers. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye!